Hey guys, Private Jack here, and welcome to part 3 on the series of how to edit the VTF files in order to fix hats and miscellaneous items from the Robotic Boogaloo series and the VooDoo JuJu and Tough Guy hat for TF2. As I said, this is part 3. In part 1 we actually went through and looked at the programs that were required in order to do this. First one being Source FilmMaker, the second one being GCFscape for digging the material assets out of the game cache files and VPack files. We looked at GIMP and the GIMP VTF plugin, so that we can actually manipulate the VTF files straight from GIMP. We looked at Notepad++ and why we like to use, and we touched basically on VTF edit. In part 2 we actually went through and we fixed up the Robo Archimedes, and we fixed his materials so that he imports as gray. We can paint him now. He can be blue, yellow, green, whatever color you want, as long as you know the RGB value of the color that you're trying to change him to. We fixed up both the red and the blue Archimedes texture files, and yeah, it turned out pretty good. This tutorial we're going to look at the Heavy's Tungsten Toque. It's a little more complex, and basically if you haven't touched on part 2 yet, you might want to go back and look at it, because I'm just going to skip through this one, and hopefully you can follow along. So that being said, let's get started. There were a couple of concerns that I had about the toque itself. That yellow ring around it, I thought that was what was supposed to be changing color, and the black textures here, also the light bulb. But let's get Source FilmMaker loaded. I'm going to also, at the same time, I'm going to open up the wiki page. And scroll down here to have a quick look at the Tough Guy's toque. There we go, the Tungsten Toque. I see that one thing that you want to do is you want to go here and you want to have a quick look at the various items and find out if they're paintable. If they're paintable, they may require fixing similar to what we're doing here. This particular one, looking at the various variants of the toque, I can see that that yellow stripe is permanent on the toque, and we don't want to change it. It stays yellow throughout any color that you add to it. So that being said, I can see now that we've got the yellow, we've got the green little light, and those textures are fine. It's just the black portion that we need to look at. Another thing that I noticed with the Tungsten Toque was if I rotate around and start looking at other objects through the toque, I can see that the textures on this toque are transparent. Now, I haven't figured out how to make them solid. I do know how to paint the toque, but it will be a transparent type paint. The transparency that is involved in the toque itself is probably programmed right into the model, into the textures of the model, and there's nothing that you can do through the VMTs to fix that. Similar to the VooDoo models for VooDoo player models for the team players. Anyway, that being said, I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to close out of that, and I'm going to load GIMP now. If you're loading GIMP for the first time, it may take a while to load up simply due to the fact that it's got to go through and register all its plugins. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the texture files for that hat. So I'm going to open C, program files, x86 for us 64-bit guys, Steam apps, common, source filmmaker, game, TF, materials, models, workshop, player, and you'll notice here I've got a player org folder here. What that is I made a backup copy of all my textures so that if I screw something up, I can always go back and grab the original texture and put it back in my players folder. So player, items, heavy, and we're going to go and look at the Tungsten Toque. Now there's two textures in here that we want to grab, and that's the Robo Heavy Tungsten Toque 1 color and the Robo Heavy Tungsten Toque color. This color 2 is me playing around here, experimenting, so we're not even going to look at that. So I'm going to click on the first one, and I'm going to hold down the control key and left click on the second one and click open. So here we go. This yellow texture that you see here, and there's two layers to it, is actually that little yellow light that you see up here on top of the hat. We'll get into that later if we have time. The main one that we're interested in is the actual materials for the hat itself. Okay, and we're going to edit these layers and make the hat paintable and actually display its proper colors. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to disable the layer mask. We're going to edit the layer mask, and we are going to show the layer mask. Okay, from there we're going to right click on this mask. We're going to select by color, and we're going to click on a black surface. What that has done is it's gone and selected anything that's black on this particular model. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go right click on the materials, select, and invert the selection so that we're picking up anything that isn't black. Okay, now that we've got, now we're going to do a file, edit, copy, or correction, right click on the material, edit, copy, and then we're going to right click on the materials and turn off the edit the layer and turn off show the layer. Now the reason why the hat is black is simply due to the fact that all this black area is what is being displayed in the file. And what we need to do is we need to change this to a different color. We selected the stuff from the overlay material, and what we're going to do now is we're going to go edit, and we're just going to paste that in there so that now it's a grayish white color. We still have the grays and whatnot else that are part of the robotic theme, but this white color now is what will actually replace the black that we see in the hat. When we pasted it, it created a floating layer section, and what we need to do now is we need to anchor that layer down onto the material. We're now going to go back and we're going to edit the mask layer, and we're going to show the mask layer. And what we're going to do now is we're going to actually go in here, we're going to edit, and we're going to select by color, and we're going to pick up all that black again, select invert, so that now we just have the materials picked up. And what we're going to do is we are going to paint those materials in this particular layer white. So edit, and I have my background color of my color wheel here pure white, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to click on the material, I'm going to edit the material, and I'm going to fill from my background color. This is now white. This material layer, okay, the masking layer, is what is actually going to receive the color and be painted onto on top of the regular layer. Also, anything that's black in the masking layer is transparent. So that's why when we actually come through here and we enable the layer mask, what you see is transparent on top of the other texture. I'm going to right click on the layers now, and I'm going to apply the layer mask. Now I'm going to come in here to File, Export, and I'm going to export that back to my materials folder. I'm going to replace it. These are the VTF properties. It tells me it's compressed. There's an alpha channel. It's an advanced VTF, and it is version 7.4. There's maps involved. I just say okay. I'm not going to change anything about that. Might take a little while for it to save. Once it's done, we're going to bring up Source FilmMaker. We're going to go into the console, down to the command line, and type mat _ reload all materials. You're going to get a bunch of error messages, but don't worry about them. It doesn't mean anything for us in this particular case. It's just map models and whatnot else. They're saying that the VMTs are not up to date on them. Don't worry about those errors. Okay, once we've got that done, we're going to go back into the animation set editor, and we're just going to move the playhead. And lo and behold, look at that. The hat turned red. Now if I right click on the hat and set the skin and go to skin 1, the hat turned blue. We still have our yellow ring. We still have our little light. It's still transparent. The model itself, the model itself is still transparent. Like I say, I haven't figured that one out yet. I think the materials in the hat itself, when the model was compiled, were set to transparent, had a transparent value assigned to them. Yeah, so there's the hat. It's painted, or it's the proper color it should be. Now, to find out if the hat is paintable, what we're going to do is we're going to go into Notepad++. We're going to load the VMT file for it. Open, C, Program Files, Steam Apps, Source FilmMaker, or yeah, Common, Source FilmMaker, Game, TF, Materials, Models, Workshop, not Weapons, Workshop, Player, Items, Heavy, heavy tungsten toque, and we're looking for the heavy tungsten toque and the heavy tungsten toque blue. These are the two VMTs that are controlling the color of the toque for the various teams. Open those up. Now I'm going to look for $ color tint base and the RGB values for that particular thing. Now if I type those into my color wheel in GIMP, the ones that are currently there, 88, 132, 133, and 162, I'm going to find that that is that blue color right there. If I type in the one that's in the other file, and that's for the blue team, right? If I type in the other one, which is 189.59.59, I'm going to find that it's red, and that's the red team's hat. But I want it to be some other color, and let's go in here to my color finder, and I'm going to pick, I don't know, kind of a darkish green color. Now I need the RGB values for that green color. So if I come back into my scales here, I can find that the colors are 18, 125, 45. I look at my hat quickly to find out which skin I've got on. I've got the blue skin on, so I'm going to go and edit the blue VMT. $18, 125, 45. 18. Where's my GIMP? 125, 45. 125, 45. I'm going to file save that. Come back into Source FilmMaker. Go into my console, type mat, reload all materials, let it whirl around a bit. When I see all these errors, I know it's done. Come back into my animation set editor, move my playhead a little bit, and there's that green color right there. Now, don't worry about the dark black specks and whatnot else through it. What that is ambient occlusion. Let's see what happens if I turn that off. There, that's better. So it also looks like the ambient occlusion has something to do with the transparency as well. Now here's the other little trick. You see this little yellow light that's on top of the hat? Well, let's go back into GIMP for a second here. That's that other texture right there. I can change that to green, red, whatever color I want, but I have to do it inside the actual material file. There's no color selection for it. It's one color or another. So all I do is I come in here, I disable the mask, come over here, right click on this, select the color, come back into my color, and let's say I want it to be a red. Red type color, so 245, 225. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go here and I'm going to edit and I'm going to paint it with my background color. Go back into my layers, re-establish the layers, apply the layer mask, file save as, or correction, file export, and export that. Replace, OK. Come into Source FilmMaker, go into my console, and matte, reload, all materials, let it whirl around, and let's see what happens to that little light. Animation set editor, and now it's got a little bit of a red glow to it. Turn ambient occlusion back on. Makes it a little redder. And now I'm ready to go off and put it on somebody and carry on filming. Right, so that's the way that you fix the Heavy's Tungsten Toque. Any questions? Well, feel free to put them into the comments area of the video, but I would prefer to see them on a discussion group in Source FilmMaker. Anyway, with that, Private Jack out.